afternoon. This is Rabbi Sachs coming to you again for another installment of the Chai Academy. So we have been discussing over the past week and a half or so Genesis chapter 1. So Genesis chapter 1 is the 6 days of creation, and that has been the previous classes. And then, of course, there's one more day. So we discussed day 1 through day 6, and then we had a special class on what was created on twilight, an interesting class. Hi, Eileen. And so now we are going to we're going to discuss the 7th day. So it's interesting because there's somewhat of a paradox here. On the one hand, we say the 6 days of creation. On the other hand, we say there were 7 days. So is it 6 days or 7 days? So the answer is it was both. It was both. You see, when God created on the 6 days, God created everything. He created from the sun and to light and darkness and waters above, waters below, the concept of miracles with water, concept of miracles with light and celestial hosts, sun, moon, stars, planets, etc. And everything and anything that the world needs. But there was one thing lacking. There was actually a couple things lacking. And that was appreciation. Appreciation was lacking. Essentially, God doesn't tire, right? God is not tired. So when they say that rest was on the 7th day, yeah, it was rest, but it wasn't rest as in exhaustion, fatigue, overworked. The lesson of the 7th day was appreciation. And it's such a fundamental lesson. If a person goes about their time with and they're just running on this treadmill, this whether it's a business treadmill or emotional treadmill, intellectual treadmill, what have you, and they do not stop and reflect about what's going on, a couple things will happen. One, there'll be burnout. Right? Obviously. If you don't stop, keep on going. You're just manic the whole time. Burnout. The second thing is you'll never be able to assess. Ever. Right? So if you work 7 days a week, you'll never be able to assess what is going on. So there were a couple of things missing after God created the world. And one was rest. We'll talk about that. Once again, it's not because of fatigue. And the other one is just appreciation, assessment. I think there's so many things here. Assessment, right? I was told that banks, and I don't know if it's true, I was told that banks, you have to take vacation. You have to take a week or 2 weeks. You must, because that way, first of all, other people can learn to do your thing, in case you leave abruptly. Secondly, it's just to give you this break from the monotony of doing what you're doing. So with God, there's no monotony. But with human beings, there is, and there is, and there can be monotony. It is right. It's you cannot keep up the pace. So that is why the very last thing to be created was man, and then Shabbat. Because if it was just about rest, right? God wanted a rest. He could whatever was created, the last animals, mosquitoes, right? If you want to rest, but it was a lesson to man. Man, I'm doing this for you. Now we can analyze, now that we know that it's for the human being, we can analyze a few things. First of all, it says it's in the Torah in chapter 1, right? This is um, right. Someone wrote if it's stealing, right? If this, it's also to see if there's a teller or a bank manager taking, pilfering. You're correct there as well. So it is so in the last day of creation, right after God made man, it says Vayichul Hashamayim va'aretz, the heaven and the earth were completed, the Chol Tzavam and all the hosts, right? And then it talks about that that I'm actually going to bring it because I think it's an important point to discuss, that the wording was so right. So the heavens and the earth were finished and all their hosts. By the seventh day, God completed his work. The seventh day, not the sixth day, not the end of the sixth day. By the seventh day, God completed his work, which he had done. And he abstained on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. God blessed the seventh day. We need to discuss what that means and sanctify it, because he abstained from all his work which God created to make. So, the seventh day, God. So what did actually God make on the seventh day? He made rest. He made us appreciate. He made us abstain. And he made us to rejuvenate, etc. Rest, the idea of rest is rest from physical, but nurture yourself spiritually. So on the seventh day, God forged spirituality into the creation, right? Shabbat is a day dedicated to spirituality. It's a day dedicated where we do not do the treadmill run. We don't do the monotonous. What we do is we nurture ourselves. We have a nice meal in honor of Shabbat. We study extra. The prayer services of Shabbat are much longer than midweek. And we spend time with our family. All this comes under the banner of nurture. Nurture. We nurture ourselves. A good chicken soup, or if you're vegetarian, good vegetable soup, mushroom barley, right? And then we have a nice meal with wine, and we have a nice meal with challah, etc. You're nurturing the body, right? You're giving the body a chance to sit and eat and not on the run. Then you spend time with the family, which, by the way, I always say this, is that Friday night family time has to be sacrosanct. The kids, grandkids, whatever it may be, want to go out Friday night, they want to go with their friends. I mean, I don't know COVID how that works, but let's say they do. What you do is tell the kids, right? We tell the kids, yes, you can go out, but you got to spend an hour and a half with the family. Our Shabbat table is sacrosanct, is holy. So you spend time with the family. You go to synagogue. You study. You sleep. You take time to sing songs around the Shabbat table. It's really incredible. It's really beautiful. You go around the table and ask, how was your week? And how was your week? And how was your week? And if you have guests, you get them involved in the family, and in the discussion rather. So it is nurturing, right? It is so nurturing, and that's what was lacking. What was lacking was nurture, right? So it's cessation from physical, but we have to take on spiritual. So Shabbat is a day dedicated to spirituality, nurturing yourself physically and spiritually. You'll study better if you have a good meal, etc., etc. And by the way, the Shabbat took on real meaning because when the Hebrews, when they left Egypt, and And before they got the Torah, they were given a couple of mitzvahs, right? One of them was the red heifer, which is not for now. The other one is Shabbat. God told them about Shabbat. So it took on real meaning. When they were in Egypt, they didn't have any nurturing. It was, right, work, work, work every day and every night, and they were beaten and whipped, etc. And then God said, no, you see, that's not the way it's supposed to be. So he reiterated, and God gave them the command of Shabbat, that you're not supposed to work in the field 7 days a week. In fact, according to the Torah, and this is a fascinating thing, according to the Torah, even an animal needs to rest. You're not allowed to work, right? You can't count money, cut diamonds, or dig a hole. You're not allowed to do it, but your animals are not allowed to work either. It's a time of rest and nurture, renewal, appreciation for all. So even the only thing that doesn't have to rest is interesting, is something that like pots and pans. So if you put your pan in the oven, it can stay there till Shabbat day. It doesn't, and as long as the oven was put on before Shabbat. But anything living has to rest, right? You don't water the plants. You don't listen. Everything is. This is in God's hands right now. And in the desert, it was one of the first things given to the Hebrews as a nation. Shabbat, appreciate, renewal, and that's why possibly, we say Shabbat Shalom, right? We could say a good Shabbos, but many people say Shabbat Shalom. What is Shalom? Peace. You should have a peaceful Shabbos. Don't think about crunching the numbers. Don't think about sales. Don't think about the bank account. Peace. Peace. Give the animals peace. Give the grass peace. Give the wheat kernels peace. Give yourself a little peace. That is the idea of Shabbat Shalom. Now, it also says, right, the last word, that God created to function, God created to make. So the Kabbalists talk about that God created a perfectly imperfect world. He created a world that needs the human being to perfect. Right? So, as an example, there are poor people in the world. There are homeless people in the world. There is pain and suffering in the world. Our job is to help the poor, help the homeless, help this, help that, conquer this, conquer that. And it's an ongoing process. So it's the seventh day, by the way, that doesn't stop. On the seventh day is we still have to help, because help comes under the guise of spirituality. When you help somebody, you revive them, you renew them, you nurture them. So on Shabbat, we still have to, right? So if you know somebody that needs help, you help them. Now, granted, you may not be able to give them money on Shabbat, but you can give them a kind word, and you can invite them, and after Shabbat, you can help them with money, help them with to find a job, and help them this, that, the other, right? That you can do. So yes, things stop on Shabbat, but human kindness does not. So somebody once asked Rabbi Akiva, and he said to a Roman, it was actually a Roman general, Roman soldier, asked Rabbi Akiva, if God created poor people and homeless people, aren't you negating God's will by helping them? So Rabbi Akiva answered him. He says that if a king's son was in trouble and you helped the king's son, wouldn't the king be appreciative? So the idea is that God, in order to keep us human, God gave us the ability to help someone else. And for whatever reason, that person was chose. It's so stressful about the grass. You can't smoke grass either. aside from watering grass, you can't. Um, so, so it, for some whatever reason, this is God's domain, is that somebody needs help. God created you to function. Once again, the world is perfectly imperfect. There's an imperfection there, but it's God's imperfection, and this is to keep us human. It says that in the verse we just read, in those couple of verses, it says God blessed the seventh day. What does it mean, God blessed the seventh day? So there's a couple of responses from the Talmud and the Code of Jewish Law. It talks about it. What does it mean that God blessed the seventh day? So one answer is given is, and this is in the Code of Jewish Law, a very unusual move. The Code of Jewish Law just tells you laws, but in a very unusual, it strays from what it usually does, and it says something like this: that you should know that your livelihood, one's livelihood, is decided by God on Rosh Hashanah. So on Rosh Hashanah, God decides this person is going to make 50,000, this person is going to make 100,000, this person is going to make 200,000, this person is going to make 400,000 and steal another 10,000. Right? So it is decided on Rosh Hashanah by God. Right? By God. However, the blessing is that the money you spend on Shabbat to buy nice food, to invite guests, to have your Shabbat best out there, is not part of the equation. So let's say over the course of the year, you spend an extra 10 grand, just rounding numbers here, right? You spend 10 grand on Shabbat, you will make 100 grand as allotted on Rosh Hashanah, plus the 10 grand that you spent on Shabbat. That's what the blessing means. The blessing is that you will not lose by Shabbat. You will not lose by honoring Shabbat. Another commentary says as follows: is that many people feel that they, and it's a similar idea really, many people feel that if they don't work on Shabbat, they're going to be in dire straits. That they own a bagel store, and a huge amount of money comes in on Saturday, right? And if they close on Saturday, they're going to lose 25% of their business compared to the other days of the week. Is 75%. The other 6 days of Shabbat is 25%, or 30%. So the idea of a blessing by Yivarech is God will bless. God will bless. That day will be blessed. And there's actually an interesting story. That a person, he was in Manhattan and New York City, and he owned an antique store. Probably not doing well now either, but he owned an antique store, and he wrote into the Lubavitcher Rebbe and said to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I can not close my store on Shabbat. It's like the bagel store. It's my biggest traffic to the antique, where I sell these antiques, and I send these old musical instruments and old tables and shmatas and tchotchkes, right? It's on Shabbat. So the Rebbe told him, have a little bit more munah, have a little bit more faith, and close on Shabbat. So he fought it at first, and he didn't close. He said it's impossible. And look, you can't argue with dollars and cents. You can't argue with dollars and cents. He says it's clear on Shabbat. Anyway, the Rebbe told him, emunah, trust in God, faith in God, trust in God. It's actually two separate things. There's emunah, faith, and bitachon is trust. Emunah is God has your best interest, and bitachon is that you really trust that he's going to do the right thing. It's all going to work out. So anyway, he closed, and he wrote into the Rebbe. And listen to this. I mean, I guess I could never say this to somebody. There's no way that I could even attempt to have this conversation with somebody. So he wrote it to the Rebbe, and he said to the Rebbe, it's very clear to me that I'm making less money. So you said Vayivarech, and God blessed, etc. Right? It's very clear that I'm losing money. So the Rebbe set him straight, and this is how the Rebbe set him straight. And by the way, I live by this. I live by this because it really makes you think. And the Rebbe told him as follows, that you look here and you see you have less money. And it may be true. He says, but you don't know, without the Vayivarech, without the blessing, you may truly have earned another $500 for the week. But maybe you would have needed to replace your catalytic converter in your car. Or your engine could have gone. Or medical bills. Or this, that, and the other. You just don't know. Leave it in God's domain. Trust in God. Right? So you have to trust in God, because you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We're in the middle of a movie. We have no idea. So the Rebbe said, yeah. So yes, you earn less money, but you're not spending because God is blessing you. You're not having aggravation, agita, and parking tickets, and red light tickets, and speeding tickets, and this, that, and the other, because of the blessing. Now I know my father one time was complaining to the Rebbe about money, about livelihood, and the Rebbe wrote back, and the Rebbe, something to this effect, the Rebbe told him, more bitachon, more trust, and the Rebbe put equal signs, equals more money. That you trust in God. God is gonna step up to the plate, right? God is gonna step up to the plate. So the more you trust in God, the more of God is gonna feel compelled to help you. It may not be as you think. It may be a different way. So Shabbat, when Shabbat comes in, even though it's very hard to do, we train ourselves. We train ourselves and we force ourselves that I am not going to worry about the week. Saturday night I can start worrying again. But these 25 sacred hours is Vayivarech. God has completely blessed me in that time. And I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to bring my balance sheets on Shabbat. I'm not going to read them. I'm not even going to read them in the bathroom, in the toilet. Right? I'm going to read either the New York Times. The question is, can you take it out of the toilet? Right? I'm going to read. I'm going to read. A novel. I'm going to read a story, whatever. But I'm not going to worry about business, and I'm going to be as happy as I can be, and I'm going to put things to the side, and I'm going to enjoy my Shabbat. That is the best thing physically and spiritually one can do for themselves. And I told you this story before, is that there was a fellow by the name of Sam Kramer. So Sam Kramer, he tells a story that when he was younger, and he lived in the Lower East Side, every Shabbat, every Friday, he told his boss he's not coming in tomorrow because it's Shabbat. The boss told him, you don't come in tomorrow, don't bother coming in on Sunday. So essentially he lost his job every end of the week. He got paid on Friday, and that was it. Sunday he had to look for a new job. So he said that I knew I lost my job. And I was devastated that yet again I lost my job. And I have to start again with a new boss, and it was a very difficult living. He said, but when Shabbat came in, and everybody stood around the table for Kiddush, where I was going to bless, I looked at my wife, I looked at my kids, and with a huge smile, I said, good Shabbos. Right? In other words, they didn't see me. Right? They didn't see me melancholy. They didn't see me depressed. They didn't see me as somebody who was just a wit's end. He says, I sheltered them because I wanted them to associate Shabbat with happiness. And if I would have been like this, Oives Mir, he says they would have had a very bad taste in Shabbat. He says, so my kids grew up associating Shabbat, which is a backbone of Judaism, right, with happiness, with singing. Never, God forbid, that reverse. Now that takes superhuman strength, but it's possible. So therefore, you don't worry about the bottom line. You don't worry about payroll. You don't worry about, you're just going to Shabbat. And it starts at night because we learn from the first, we see from creation, it begins at night and then the next day, and it's one day. So whereas a secular day begins at midnight and ends at midnight, a Jewish day begins at dark and essentially ends at dark. So tonight, when it gets dark, whatever time, early, right? When it gets dark at 5:30, it is already Tuesday. And then tomorrow night, when it gets dark, it's Wednesday. So Friday night to Saturday night, you put everything on the side. You just rely and have emunah, faith, bitachon, trust that God is going to bless. He's going to bless this day, and realize also. I think it's important to realize is that you're not the first going through it, but rather Shabbat, and as the Talmud says, it's a bold statement of the Talmud, but it's right on. The Talmud says, more than the Jews have kept Shabbat, the Shabbat has kept the Jews. In other words, the very fact we have this concept called Shabbat is what kept us as a people. That's one of our secrets. Another one of our secrets is all we people of the book. Right? We study. Right? We have emunah, etc. But Shabbat it's one of the foundational aspects that keep us as a people. Right? We all have this concept. We all know. Hopefully, all know. If not, listen. Share this little class. But it's the idea is that Shabbat is our footing, is our foundation, and the rest comes from there. You should have a great day. If you have any questions, you can ask here or rabbi@thechaicenter.com. If you wish to see this or any other class we've given, it's thechaicenter.com/academy. Rabbi Sachs, and I'm signing off. God bless.